Okay, so uh, today we have it's a special lecture. It's not a guest lecture. So I am from this institute only, and I want to share with you guys uh, some work that we are doing in IKS from a bit of a research perspective. So we are looking at IKS from the lens of research as we do it in IIT Roorkee, and I will be trying to explain whether we can use the Samkhya darshan. So we all of us have some idea about what Samkhya darshan is, as a scientific model, and explain what consciousness is through that model. So let me begin. So my name is Sohom Chakrabarty. I am an associate professor in the electrical engineering department and joint faculty with the Indian Knowledge System Center. And let me begin. So the motivation for this lecture is for all the audience who are gathering here to develop a scientific mindset around Indian knowledge system. So this is my first objective. So we will see the Indian knowledge system, how we can look at it from the scientific mindset which we understand. We quote unquote we understand something as a scientific mindset. So we present the second objective is to present the otherwise esoteric concepts. I will not present all the concepts which are there in Sankhya Darshan, but some of those concepts which seem very esoteric because it comes with certain new concepts and ideas which we are not familiar with in the usual mainstream discussion. So I quote unquote I use the word esoteric to describe them, and ideas from Sankhya philosophy in a structured manner. So I will present them in a structured manner suited for the audience who are trained in the modern education system. So we'll try to develop a scientific perspective to deal with the deep philosophical questions about the nature of self and existence, which is the content of Sankhya, and place Sankhya and yoga at the forefront of modern academic studies. So with this entire work that I am trying to do along with some students, we are trying to, our intention is to place the Sankhya and yoga at the forefront of modern academic studies so that other people engaged in the academia could also take it up. Last but not the least, insight and attitude of seeking through jigyasa. Not jigyasa and questioning is two different things. Subtle difference is there. Jigyasa is something we do in order to gather more knowledge. We want to know, we seek to know. So that sort of an attitude we want to develop, and that will orient our intellect towards the spiritual. So this is the another objective, the final objective. Through this sort of a jigyasa in this direction, jigyasa happens, then our intellect grows. Intellect is stimulated with the jigyasa. Whatever comes the knowledge, the intellect is blossomed. So that intellect will orient towards the spiritual, because the content of this entire philosophy darshan is a spiritual, having a deep spiritual connotations in our life. So as the title is there, can Sankhya be a scientific model to explain consciousness? So I will break it down to three things. One is model, another is Sankhya, and another is consciousness. And this is the first question I would like to place to the audience. Yes? Sankhya is the word. Sankhya. It is pronounced as Sankhya. Comes from Sankhya. Okay, there is a count thing is there within this entire philosophy. So it is called the Sankhya. Okay. So first question that I would place to the audience is, what is a model? What do we mean by a model? So we all work with models possibly here as engineering and science people. Any idea what is a model? So this is my style of sort of a lecture. I try to interact with the audience through questions. Yes. Mm. So you say it is a representation of the reality, of reality. Help of this representation. Okay. Why we need to do that? Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, right, true. Another reason is that we cannot comprehend reality as it is. Okay, this is very important to understand. We cannot comprehend reality as it is. It is difficult to communicate, something gets lost in between. Okay, something gets lost in between. What we do, that's why, because science must be very like it must have this repeatable and reproducible sort of things, so it must be well defined. So if I define something, that definition you should also understand, everyone should also understand. So if the reality I am not able to comprehend completely, also not communicate completely, but I can communicate and develop something very clear cut, which is called a model, which is a representation of the reality, right? So if you think about, nothing really is circle or square, but we talk about circles and squares. We understand what circles and squares are, all geometric shapes are, but nothing is really exactly that shape, right? Something different will be there in reality. Reality is not exactly with circles and squares and all geometric shapes, but these geometric shapes give us a good model to represent the reality that we are talking about. Okay, so that is a model, very true. All of us understand because we work with models. So it's a representation of reality. And what is reality? Reality is any phenomenon or system or anything else that can be observed. This is how we may define reality. So what we observe, what can be observed, is reality. Whatever it may be some uh, lightning striking somewhere at the horizon, a phenomenon happening, maybe just a system, small system, a motor running, okay, a generator producing electricity, or anything like someone walking by, that is also something. So anything that you are able to observe, that is a reality. Now model would necessarily never represent reality accurately. It is necessary that models will not represent reality accurately. Very important to understand. It also keeps changing with time and place. This is also very true, that we keep on developing new and new models to represent the reality better and better. So models are never fixed, they keep on changing also. And the model that is useful in suppose um, suppose I am not sure whether this is a good example or not. Suppose rainfall prediction model, which is useful in tropical countries or subtropical countries like India, is not useful in countries, European countries or Antarctic places, like polar regions or subpolar regions, may not be useful, the same model. Okay, so they keep on changing with time and place. What is a scientific model? A scientific model must lend itself to analysis. Okay, a toy car is also a model, it is also a representation of reality. A car running at the road, toy car is a representation of reality. But will you be able to do a good scientific analysis with the toy car? Maybe with some good toy car that is possible, but usually the toy cars are not meant to do that. The toy cars that we get off the shelf, we will not be able to do scientific analysis with that. Okay, so these are not scientific models. These are also models, but they are not scientific models. And whatever analysis we do with the scientific model should be repeatable and reproducible. That is a criteria that science gives us. Okay, very good. So this is an understanding, clear understanding of what is a model. Difference we need to understand between model and principle. What is a model and what is a principle? Principle are fundamental ingredients that construct reality. fundamental ingredients that construct reality. In the real thing, which is there, not the model, but also on the real, the principles are working in order to produce the reality that we are able to observe. It governs the behavior and analysis of models also, because when you do a model, it is also part of the reality. Now you have made a model, it is there, you can observe that model, you can study that model, and it governs the behavior analysis of models. It is independent of time and place. Principles are always independent of time and place. The laws of nature that we know are principles. The principle of conservation of energy, principle, the Newton's laws of motion. In a particular domain, it is a principle because it will be valid. Okay. So all these things are principles which govern the reality, the way the reality operates. This is just a slide to give us an idea of what we mean by these different things. So system or phenomenon, actual thing which is there as a battery, here is an example as a battery. Now the battery can be represented by this equivalent circuit model. People who may work in battery may know this model. This is the equivalent circuit model. Battery does not have this circuit inside. So you can make this circuit separately on a breadboard. That is a circuit. But the working of the battery is represented by the working of this circuit in some way, in some approximations. So we work with this equivalent circuit model, which we very easily we can work with, we can analyze, we can predict things. Mathematical representations, whatever mathematical representations come, that is also a model. And these are governed by these principles. So for this particular example, these are some of the principles which are at work. And we have discovered, scientists have discovered what these principles are. So with this understanding of model and principle, let us move to the next question, which is, what is Samkhya? So maybe like models, all of you had some understanding. Samkhya, maybe some less of you have understanding, but whatever understanding you might have, let us bring it on the at the platform. Let us see what you know about whatever you know about Samkhya. Yes.
Sankhya is first of the 6 Indian philosophies, and which actually started with discussion of what reality is, and what it did, like its major contribution is that it objectified the reality, and by dividing it between Purush, Prakriti, and like all the gunas and what we are made of, like all the things with numbers that we hear, like 5 चीजों से मिलके हम बने हैं, हमारी आंखें भी हैं, or something like that. All those are described in Sankhya.
Right. So जैसे Sankhya word, even if you have not heard, you know Panchendriya, Pancha Gyanendriya, you know. Who does not know about Pancha Gyanendriya? Pancha Gyanendriya you didn't know before? So all these 5 senses that you are having, okay, this is called, this is Pancha Gyanendriya. Then Pancha Karmendriya is there, okay. So like this different Pancha Bhut, Mahabhut. Anyone who has not heard about Pancha Mahabhut? You have not heard, 2 people. Mahatattva, Pancha Mahatattva. Who has not heard Pancha Mahatattva? Same चीज ही है, Pancha Mahabhut, Pancha Mahatattva, उसी को बोलते हैं, ठीक है. Okay, so what we see here is that even if we may not have heard the word Sankhya, these are all cultural things that are imbibed within us. We know about all these things. As Indians, we know about all these things. So Sankhya is one of the philosophies that have greatly impacted the Indian thought. Vedanta is also one of the philosophies which has greatly impacted the Indian thought. Sankhya is one of the philosophies which has impacted the Indian thought. Nowadays we hear Vedanta a lot. Sankhya is not heard with the coinage of the terms so much, but these are concepts which are brought from the Sankhya system. And used by other systems as well. Okay, so just another round. Who has not, who previously did not hear about Samkhya here in this hall? 1, 2, 3. Not so only a few. So that's good to know. At least you knew the term. So this is the book which I have referred for my research, and this is one of the most well recognized book as an source of authoritative knowledge on Sankhya Darshan. And what does it contain? Majorly, Sankhya system is constituted of these 25 principles. These are the names. You may have heard about some of the names like Buddhi, Ahankar, Mana. Mana is Man, and Gyanendriya, Karmendriya, Mahabhuta. I am not sure whether you have heard about Tanmatra, Purusha and Prakriti. These are a bit not so much well known to us. Additional concepts are there which are Triguna. Triguna, anyone does not know about Triguna? Raise your hand, I will explain. Triguna. Satya, Rajas, Tamas. Everyone knows, right? Those are the Trigunas. Okay. So these Trigunas are also introduced here. So you see the reach of Sankhya. Even if you didn't know that Sankhya Darshan, these are concepts from the Sankhya Darshan. Triguna, then Praman, some system of Praman is there which has been which is also there, and some process of evolution is given here. How from one principle the other principle is evolved, and then on like that. The problem with this Darshan Shastra, or the way it is written, it is not the problem with the Darshan. The problem with the structure of the book is very much away, very much different from how we are used to read textbooks nowadays. So that creates a huge gap in order to understand and imbibe the knowledge that is there in the Sankhya Karika textbook here. It is like a textbook, almost like a textbook, but written in their own fashion. And when we try to read it in the way we are used to read our books, we find that the concepts are non-linearly presented in the book. Usually in our textbooks we have one concept, complete understanding. Next concept comes, maybe it uses the previous concept, maybe it is a very different concept also. So all these concepts are coming one after another. It is not that some concept A you will find in the first 2 lines, and then after 50 lines again that concept comes. Okay, and you have to read all this. After 50 lines also you have to read in order to get a complete understanding of what it is. That is the way it is there in this book. So that is a difficulty that we encountered. So that is what we call missing links and abrupt transitions. They transition from one concept to another very abruptly. And another thing which is a bit off from the way we are used to study in our mainstream education system is that in the mainstream education everything comes with some inferential understanding. So we are given some statement, it is not really a statement, we understand it logically that one thing comes after another. So we can infer the next thing coming from the previous knowledge. Here everything looks like a statement and you have to take it as a face value. When you read it, everything looks like a statement, that this is Purusha, this is Prakriti, this is a relationship. We have to take everything as at face value. Okay, and there is no means, it seems there is no means in order to validate whether this knowledge is true or not. Okay, so that is a great impediment that we saw, and the first thing that we did is we grouped the Karikas. So Karikas are the statements. There are 72 Karikas, and we have the student who did this, Balaji, Srivardhan Balaji is also here among the audience. So he did a great work in order to group these Karikas into, you see, 13 different groups of concepts. So he saw, when he read it, he saw that this one concept, the 3 kinds of pain and the best means for the elevation, are presented in Karika number 1, 2 and 55. So he clubbed this as one concept A. Then concept B, evolution of Prakriti according to Samkhya, in these Karika numbers. So when you read the book, open the book, you will see that these Karika numbers discuss the evolution of in Prakriti according to the Samkhya. Similarly we did, so we found that these are the concepts which are told in Samkhya, and these are distributed everywhere. Now we are able to group them. Okay, so this is a very good work that has been done, and this work will be presented in an upcoming conference in IIT Mandi. Now this solves the problem of nonlinear representation and that missing link and abrupt transition between concepts. So now we have one concept, we can look at the particular Karikas and try to get a meaning, if we are able to understand whatever is written in Sanskrit or the translation of it. If we can understand that, then we get a complete picture of that particular concept. However, the other problem is not solved, the last problem, which is to take the statements at face value. This problem is still there. We have to still take the statements at face value. We do not have any inferential system to infer one statement as a logical conclusion of the other statements. That work is done by looking at Samkhya from an axiomatic framework. Yes? There is no conversation here, it is only statements you will see. Okay, it is not similar to Upanishad. No. Yes. Okay, so these type of literature are called Karikas. This is called Karika. Sutras and Karikas are written in this type of structure, where someone is just writing something which is to be taken as truth. Okay. Only one way of comprehension you are saying. There might be some other way of comprehension, because IKS is open to comprehensions. There are different commentaries written. However, deviation, not too much deviation is possible here, because they are pointing out very objectively certain things. You can only, in the commentary, you can only see that someone may have understood it in that particular object, they are describing it in some details, and another person is describing it in some more details or less details. The relationships, someone may have given certain relationships which another person, another commentator may not have given those relationships. So these are some differences you will observe. Okay. Okay. So yeah, so now what we did, so when we went over the entire Samkhya Karika and we got some understanding of it, then this thought occurred. So I could sort of get some sort of an intuition that there is an axiomatic approach to understanding Samkhya, which is not presented anywhere. What is axiomatic approach? Axiomatic approach is what are axioms? Anyone know what are axioms? Which you have to accept as truth. Okay, statements which you have to accept as true, and these are the minimum number of statements with which you can logically develop an entire field of study. Okay, whatever comes next will be based on these axioms. Okay, so only you have to take the axioms as true. Only you have to take the axioms as true, and then everything follows. okay, from the axioms. Now this is exactly the way that algebra and many other mathematical systems are constructed. Mathematical systems are constructed by us. They are very good systems to model the reality, but they are constructed by the human beings. And for their constructions, axioms are needed. Some axioms that these are like, if I remember correctly, the basic algebras that we know define only two objects, 0 and 1, as the axioms. You have to take it as true that some 0, something called 0 and something called 1 is there. And from this 0 and 1 and some operations are defined, addition and multiplication, these two operations are defined with the understanding of what is the property of 0, what is the property of 1, how the operation of addition and multiplication happens, you will be able to build up all the other numbers in the entire algebraic system, okay, and everything comes naturally. So these are the fundamental axioms there, maybe some relationships between the 0 and 1, okay. So these are the fundamental statements. And another important property of axioms is that in a particular field of study, if there are 3 axioms or 4 axioms, these statements must be exclusive of each other, means the meaning of one sentence must not have any overlap with the meaning of another sentence. They must be independent, okay. So with that understanding, these 3 axioms I could figure out from the entire Samkhya Karika book. Now if someone else reads, maybe he or she will say that there may be 3 other different statements which can be treated as axioms. It may be possible, okay. This is what, for me, these are the axioms, okay. And with these axioms, I had been able to develop the other concepts which are also concepts from Samkhya in a logical manner. So what are these axioms? Let us try to understand. One more thing which I have skipped here, before axioms comes, there should be definition of certain objects which we are using in the axioms. Like here Purusha and Prakriti are some objects we are using. I have not defined it as such here, okay. But for the sake of going ahead with this conversation, let us just see that something is Purusha, something is Prakriti. No need to understand what exactly are the properties. Some properties are described in the axioms only, and we will go ahead with that. What we are saying in the first axiom is that Purusha and Prakriti, 2 objects, are eternally separate from each other. There is no intersection between these 2 objects can ever happen. They are eternally separate. Next axiom, we are saying that Prakriti is subject to modifications. So something called modifications we must understand naturally what is modification. So whatever is the modification is in the Prakriti. Purusha does not suffer from modifications, while Purusha is not subject to modifications. So it can never be modified. Purusha, whatever it is given, however you have defined it, it will remain like that all the time, all the place, okay. Third is that Purusha is the observer of Prakriti, while Prakriti is for observation of Purusha. The last one defines the relationship between these 2 objects. 2 objects I have defined, I have said that these are eternally separate, but there is some relationship between these 2. They interact, although they are separate. They interact with each other. What is the interaction? The interaction is observer-observation relationship. Interaction is through observer-observation relationship. Just validate yourself that none of these 3 statements are independent. None of these statements overlap and bring out the meaning or any iota of meaning of the other statement. Each statement is a distinct statement on its own. Okay. Now, if you accept these axioms, then we can proceed further. And here in the bottom you see SK 10, 17, 19. This means Samkhya Karika number 10, 17 and 19. In these Karikas, these understandings can be extracted from these Karikas. I will not say that these Karikas exactly write these statements. No, they write something, but from that sentence, whatever from that Karika, you will be able to extract these meanings, these understandings, and these I have now put at axioms. So now when I proceed further, you will see that this SK something something is written. It will not mean that this particular whatever I have written in English is there in that particular Karika. No, that Karika means something which is the same as the English that I have written above. Okay, it is in that way.
These karikas are like chapters or slokas?
Shlokas, shlokas,
So there are 72 slokas.
72 shlokas. Yes, it does not take much time to read. Okay. These ground truths to be taken at face value, of course, until one is able to achieve realization of the same. Now, what is realization? So, I have given, I told you that this is a fact. Now, in order for you to believe it, you need to do an experiment and see that it is a fact. Okay. Either you need to run an experiment, or I need to take you and go and show that yes, something like that is happening. Water is falling from above. You are not believing me. I go and take you and show you a waterfall. And now you will believe that water is really falling from height to a lower height. Okay. So some sort of a this when you really see that, it is a realization that you get. So you realize that it is true. So this realization is of these axioms is possible through yoga. So this is the counter philosophy of Samkhya. Samkhya and yoga come as pairs. Now yoga gives the methods and the techniques through which if you go yourself, then these whatever is told in Samkhya as well as in yoga philosophy also a lot of things are told apart from whatever is told in Samkhya. Those things you will be able to realize yourself. This is the claim of yoga. Okay. Yes. Hmm. They are separate. Yes, no one is saying that they do not exist, they do not coexist. No statement is saying that they do not coexist or only one exists, another does not exist. No, none of the statements are saying that. First statement is only saying they are separate. Okay, like all of us here are separate entities existing at the same time, existing, coexisting, right? All are separate. Okay, you cannot confuse yourself with your friend sitting next to you, right? Separation is there, that separation is there. So it is eternally separate. So what you are saying that these two are eternally separate, but there is a relationship, like you are able to observe, your friend is also able to observe you. Here it is said that only Purusha is the observer. Only Purusha is the observer, it is able to observe, and Prakriti is for the observation of the Purusha in its all modifications, different things that we see in this existence, that are these are all modifications of the same Prakriti, and we see, we are the observers seeing that Prakriti. Okay. Which nature? Purusha is human, you are saying.
Human being. And
It can be any observer. It is an observer. Okay. Humans are not the only observer in this existence. There are other organisms also.
But is Prakriti referring to the nature?
Nature.
Nature. Okay.
Prakriti is being referred to the nature. So now with this small exercise, I will these are all work in progress, okay, all work in progress. No, we will have to write papers on this. So I am just showing that how we can conclude some of the ideas in Samkhya as a logical statement coming from these axioms. Okay. I can propose that Purusha is a sentient principle while Prakriti is insentient. Thus, Purusha can be recognized as a conscious principle. This is due to A3. Now, I have just written due to A3. That there may be some more layers of proofs needed, but you may be able to conclude that yes, because it is the observer, it is the sentient principle. Whatever is able to, when you are able to observe, it is able to sense, that is why it is able to observe. So, it is a sentient principle, and hence we can also term it as conscious principle, as the conscious principle. Prakriti is not the conscious principle. Prakriti is not the sentient principle. It is insentient, it is unconscious. Purusha is the sentient and conscious because it is the observer. It is strictly, it is directly comes from the A3 axiom. There is a corollary we can derive that the principles evolving from Prakriti are also insentient. So, since Prakriti is insentient, in the Samkhya there are other principles that get derived, that evolve from Prakriti. They are also insentient because the root is insentient. Okay. They appear sentient due to the proximity of Purusha. They appear sentient due to the proximity of Purusha. Because Purusha is observing the Prakriti, it has a closeness with Prakriti. Because of the closeness, because of the proximity, it appears, these principles also appear as sentient. Would you acknowledge that the I is sentient? Would you acknowledge? Anyone who acknowledges the I as sentient? No one. But most of you would acknowledge that the mind is sentient. Isn't it true? Mind is sentient. Please raise your hands, a few. But mind is also a principle derived from Prakriti. And even though we know this, it is still very hard for us to comprehend that mind is insentient. It is only because the observer is using the mind to observe, it appears that the mind is sentient. The mind has a close relationship with the Purusha. Next proposition can be this: delusion is the state of Purusha identifying itself entangled with the multifarious expressions of Prakriti, and awakening or realization is the state of Purusha identifying itself separate from Prakriti. Now, since there is this observation going on, what happens that Purusha sometimes, like what is happening to us, we feel that the mind is sentient because we are so much engaged with it. Okay. People who are so much engaged with their physical self will also think that the physical self is the sentient self, sentient thing. Okay, they will think like that. I will take the question. Okay, but that is a delusion. That is a delusion. So delusion is when Purusha identifies itself entangled with Prakriti. Okay, entangled with the multifarious expressions of Prakriti, and when it realizes that it is actually separate, then we can term that it is realization. This is due to A1 and A2. What is A1 saying? A1 saying is it is separate, and A2 is saying that Prakriti is subject to modifications while Purusha is not. So if Purusha thinks that it is subject to modifications, it is a delusion. When Purusha thinks or Purusha understands that it is separate, it is an awakening. Okay. There may be some other layers of proofs that are needed, but these are the two axioms through which we come to this statement. Okay. Any question?
So, sir, whose delusion is this?
Purusha's delusion.
If Purush is the observer,
Hmm.
how can he, as soon as he entangled itself to Prakriti, it stops being observer?
Still an observer.
Huh?
It is still an observer.
So if he is still an observer, how does he entangle with the Prakriti?
In reality, or mm, in the terms of absolute truth, Purusha will be still separate from Prakriti. But since it is always engaging, the Purusha, like the observer which is within us, it does not think itself, it does not realize that it is separate from the embodiment and from the other things through with which it is interacting.
So whose delusion is this again? Like, I mean, like Purush does not acknowledge this, or like if he
This,
is the
this, this delusion will be Purushas embodied in the Prakriti. Delusion remains as long as the embodiment, as long as the association with the embodiment remains, because some association with the embodiment will make the Purusha uh, recognize that it is that embodiment, like we are recognizing that I am the mind, okay, the mind is sentient, something like that. Or some people may acknowledge that beyond the mind there are emotions or feelings like that. So we see that we are feelings, but still we are not feelings. That is also an illusion. Okay. So in this way, till you are not able to remove all these entanglements, you will feel that you are part of the entanglement. And when you are able to remove these entanglements and come to the recognition of yourself as only yourself, separate from everything else, then you will realize what separation is, then you will achieve realization or awakening. It is said in this way. Okay. Once that awakening happens, the Purusha knows that it is separate from Prakriti. It will always keep knowing that.
so in any case when there is no realization,
Hmm.
वहाँ पे पुरुष और प्रकृति एक साथ,
Yes.
तो इसी स्टेट को डिल्यूशन कहते हैं.
इसी स्टेट को डिल्यूशन कहते हैं. इसी स्टेट को डिल्यूशन कहते हैं. एंटेंगलमेंट विद प्रकृति, दैट इज द डिल्यूशन. ओके. Purusha can be in two states, bounded to Prakriti and liberated from Prakriti. These are the two states. Next proposition we can bring that unless engaged by Purusha, Prakriti exists in her dormant state with all modifications subsided into itself. This is the fundamental principle of Prakriti called Mula Prakriti or Linga Prakriti, the seed state. This is also known as Pradhana. This is due to A2 and A3. How it is coming from A2 and A3? Let us try to comprehend. Prakriti is subject to modifications while Purusha is not. Now, who is observing the modification? The Purusha is observing. So, if the Purusha is not observing, then is there any need for the modifications? No need for the modifications. So, when the Purusha is not engaged, then Prakriti does not suffer the modifications. It remains in the unmodified seed state, having all the potential for expressing into the multifarious forms, but not doing that, because Purusha is still not engaged in the action of observation. This is the beginning of creation as told in our tradition. This is the situation at the beginning of creation as told in our Indian tradition. Prakriti in the Mool state, Moola Prakriti, Linga Prakriti, not expressed. Expression happens when the Purusha tries to engage itself with the Prakriti. Okay. Corollary, gunas are something that are existing in pradhana. We have not discussed what gunas exactly are, but they exist in mutual equilibrium or balance, and in the pradhana, which is the mula prakriti, does not give rise to any modifications unless Purusha engages with it. So this is a corollary here, that the gunas will exist in mutual equilibrium. This is also so you can establish it logically in this way, that the gunas exist in mutual equilibrium unless the Purusha engages with it. This is the, I think, the last one before we go to consciousness. So what we say, very important thing, in absence of Purusha there is no requirement of Prakriti. Both coexist. Axioms are saying both coexist. Now you try to see when one would not exist, whether the other will be required or not. Okay, something in a negative way we approach it. So we see that if Purusha, the observer, is not there, what is being observed? When the observer, in absence of Purusha, there is no requirement of Prakriti. Prakriti is required because Purusha observes. Because the observer observes, there is a need for something to be observed. If the Purusha says suddenly one day that I will stop this action of observing, is there any need for bringing that thing which is being observed? Theoretically, there is no need.
Sir, but why are you adding this need वाला thing? मतलब कोई भी चीज की जरूरत होगी तभी प्रकृति exist करेगी. ये premise कहाँ से?
This is scientific premise. Science does not allow for things which are not needed in their theory. In scientific theories and models, you do not add anything extra which is not needed in the bigger picture, in your description of reality.
So what happens if Purusha is still not capable or able to observe something, but the thing is still happening?
Purusha will always be able to observe because it has a property. The property of Purusha is that it is the observer. It always observes. Here, to make this proposition, in order to come to this conclusion that Purusha is the fundamental cause, we are twisting it around a bit. We are saying that now suppose that the Purusha is not there, no one is observing, then if there is nothing which is observing, there should not be that other thing which is being observed. Okay, because no one is observing, there is no need for that thing which is being observed. Question? Yes.
Sir, can we say like right now I'm not in my lab, so my lab could exist for it to be grown up. I don't know. I don't exactly know whether which state it is. It's like quantum physics we have when you are.
We'll take it up later. Okay, we'll take it up later.
So you still haven't defined the term.
Still not defined properly. Yes. Yeah. So that is one thing we have not done. But overall, you can see in this way that how do we define things? We define things by attaching some properties with that object. So Purusha is that object which is aware, which can be aware. The property of awareness is associated with Purusha. Okay. Because it is aware, it is able to observe.
For my case,
There is
it has to do with the
an observer within you,
within
within each of us,
invisible.
who is observing all these things, whatever is outside us. We are able to observe that. We are thinking that the mind is observing. Beyond the mind, the Purusha is observing. So that is the fundamental thing.
But the Purusha can be the emergent property of the physical being itself.
Yes, there is a field of study or scientists who are aligned to this sort of thought process. The Purusha is an emergent property. There is a field, there is a group of scientists who are walking in that line. Yes,
So can Purusha observe Purusha?
it is possible. In yoga sutras it is told. Okay, that is the state of realization. Yes.
So we are saying that there is no requirement of Prakriti, but Prakriti exists without Purusha.
Prakriti will not exist without Purusha. This is what we are trying to argue here in this proposition. If Purusha does not exist, there is no requirement of Prakriti. Hence, Purusha is a fundamental cause.
No requirement of Prakriti and doesn't exist Prakriti are two different things.
Two different things, since both exist. Now, axiom is saying both are existing. Both are there. Though eternally separate, both are there. Now we are trying to ask the question, which is the fundamental, more fundamental. Okay. Then we are saying, if Prakriti moves away, whether Purusha will still be there. If Purusha moves away, whether Prakriti will still be there. So if Purusha moves away, Prakriti, there is no need for Prakriti. So because Purusha is there, Prakriti comes for the observation of Purusha. That's why we are saying that Purusha is a fundamental cause. Though both Prakriti and Purusha are fundamental for the existence.
But isn't the life of Earth is more than the life of the time from which the life was on Earth? So is it not like the matter is?
I will take that question later on. Okay, I'm seeing where you are trying to go. Okay. I'm not able to hear your question, sorry. Please speak a bit loudly. Purusha will be there and it won't be exist means? Eternally separate from Prakriti. We are taking a thought experiment here. It's like a thought experiment. In reality, it is not happening in this way. Really, in reality, both Purusha and Prakriti is there, but we are thinking that if Purusha was not there, whether there is a need of Prakriti or not. So we are seeing that it is not needed. Then, for both to exist means that Purusha is the more fundamental, is the more fundamental cause, in order to Prakriti to also exist. It is existing for Purusha. Prakriti is existing for Purusha, for the observation of Purusha. This is the axiom. This is in the axiom. Purusha is the observer of Prakriti. Prakriti is for the observation of Purusha. Prakriti is for the observation of Purusha. Its only requirement is for the observation of Purusha.
Actually, the problem we see actually coming from the fact that we have taken three axioms. Okay, now we are negating like and where in these axioms, Prakriti and Purusha are almost same level का entity. ठीक है? अभी हम ये बोल रहे हैं कि in absence of one, the other would not. There is no reason for the other to exist. इसका counter argument ये हो सकता है कि if there is no Prakriti, who will observe? Therefore, Prakriti is the fundamental cause, right? So, from the same line of arguments, we can argue it the otherwise.
Suppose Prakriti is existing all the time. All the time it is existing. Who is giving you the validity of that existence? Who is saying it exists? Purusha is saying.
If Purush is existing as an observer, who will observe and then how will he come to know that he is the observer?
Sorry.
So, like if Purush is existing, Prakriti is not there, so who will he observe? And
It can observe itself. Yes, this is not in Samkhya Karika, it is in Yoga Sutra.
Okay. So
Yes.
Purush can observe
Itself.
Purush,
Yes.
whereas Prakriti cannot observe anything. That is why Purush. So this is a good like premise to say that fundamental God is Purush.
Yeah, maybe. It can only observe. Only observe. Observation is not it becomes an observation. The observing itself, there is a loop, self loop coming here. Okay, it is we can discuss it later, because it is not part of Sankhya. Sankhya does not tell it in this way. Yoga Sutras tell it in this way. Okay.
That's a duality. What we say duality, both exist together.
This is a dual philosophy. This is a dual philosophy. This is not non-dual philosophy. Okay. So even in the dual philosophy, there is a possibility, and this is remarked also in the Sankhya, that this is the fundamental cause. Purusha is the fundamental cause. Even though it is dual philosophy, even the philosophy says both need to exist all the time. But still it is saying that Purusha is the fundamental cause, because without that the other's requirement is not there. There is no requirement of the other to exist. Okay. Corollary is this: the process of manifestation in the field of pradhana is brought about by the proximity of Purusha to Prakriti, resulting in variations or unbalance in the pradhana qualities. So, so the corollary is only saying that if Purusha is the fundamental cause, it is bringing up the manifestations in the field of pradhana. So, the behind the manifestations that we see in the Prakriti, Purusha is the cause, because it tries to get in contact with Prakriti. It cannot merge with Prakriti, it tries to observe Prakriti. Because of this is called proximity. Because of this proximity of Prakriti, of Purusha to with Prakriti, the Prakriti now expresses itself. Prakriti is also eternal. It is a cause of the modifications, the manifestations in Prakriti that we are seeing. If it is not doing that, if it is not trying to engage with the Prakriti, Prakriti will remain in the seed state. It will remain in the seed state. Okay. Now, what we are seeing entire creation, it is in the expressed state. That expression happened because Purusha is came in proximity with Prakriti. That is why it is a fundamental cause. Because it is a fundamental cause, it comes in contact with Prakriti, and then the Prakriti expresses itself in these all multifarious forms. So, with this these propositions and corollaries are I only discussed in order to give you a flavor that how the Sankhya can be brought into an axiomatic framework. And there is a field of philosophy called analytical philosophy, where this sort of approach is taken up. There are axioms defined, and then certain propositions and corollaries are defined. Okay. In the same way, we can, many of the things, many of the concepts in Sankhya are already covered here, and the others can also be covered. This is my intuition, I have to work on that. Okay. The others can also be covered. What you are seeing, all these propositions and corollaries are related to something the Samkhya Karika has said. Okay. Now, when I will go to consciousness, I will move beyond Samkhya, beyond Samkhya Karika, but use the same axioms of Samkhya. This is just a statutory warning that I am giving you. So, you will not see a SK written there, but whatever I will infer is can logically be inferred from the axioms, you will see. Now, what is consciousness? Again, I bring the discussion to the audience. Consciousness, what is consciousness? What is our idea of consciousness? This is the greatest, most puzzling question that scientists are talking about. There is no real consensus in the understanding of consciousness so far in the scientific field, but still we can discuss about it. Whoever has whatever ideas of consciousness. Anything you want to? Ability to observe. Okay, fine. Any other ideas? Yeah, consciousness, Chetana, describe something more. Ability to feel. Okay.
The same thing is called
Awareness. Sense of self. Sense of self. Okay. Yeah. Alertness. Okay. Yes. Observer and observer. Relationship between observer and observation is the observation only. So observation is consciousness, you are saying, right? Awareness of our own existence. अपने आप को देख पाना, तो अपने आप को मिरर के अलावा तो देखा नहीं कभी अपने आप को. Realizing what I am, who I am. So ये realization का बात कर रहे हो तुम. Okay. What actual existence is. Something inside. Ability to distinguish between its surrounding and something inside. Okay, these are all different ideas. I did not get it from the beginning. Okay, living being and dead. Okay. Phenomenon. So you are saying some phenomenon, someone saying some ability, someone saying with some other qualities like awareness, alertness, something like that. So let us see how scientists are talking about it. There are many different types of consciousness. I am only putting two important terms which we will be discussing. Okay, there is something called state consciousness, there is something called creature consciousness, there is something called access consciousness. Many different types of consciousness are there. So since I want to do research, I have to go through these terms. Okay, but these are the two things which we will target, because these are at the center of the conundrum of consciousness, the mystery of consciousness. Qualia and phenomenal consciousness. What is qualia? These are taken from this reference. Online you will find it. You can maybe Google it. Stanford Encyclopedia of Consciousness. Qualia. The phenomenal character of an experience is what it is like subjectively to undergo that experience. You are experiencing something. What it is like to experience it. Something it is to be like to experience it, right? If you are told to focus your attention upon the phenomenal character of your experience, you will find that in doing so you are aware of certain qualities, that you like it, you don't like it, something red gives you a certain sort of a itching inside, okay, some dirt lying around gives you a certain itching inside, some nice scenery gives you a certain flavor inside, okay. This sort of things comes. These qualities, ones that are accessible to you when you introspect, and that together make up the phenomenal character of experience, are sometimes called qualia. Such long definition. Like phenomenal consciousness, such qualia are sometimes referred to as phenomenal properties, and the associated sort of consciousness as phenomenal consciousness. Whatever is able to grasp those qualities, that is a consciousness, phenomenal consciousness. That the latter term is perhaps more properly applied to the overall structure of experience. We are experiencing, red is giving us a certain sort of feeling, okay. Some mountains are giving us a certain sort of feeling. Why? Because there is some structure of reality, some overall structure of experience that we are having within us, and it involves far more than sensory qualia. The phenomenal structure of consciousness encompasses much of spatial, temporal, and conceptual organization of our experience. If you don't like vast spaces, you will not like vast spaces. If you don't like constricted spaces, you don't like constricted spaces. Some sort of a temporal, spatial organization is there within you, okay, of your experience of the world and ourselves as agents in it. Very difficult sort of lines written there. Also it is written here, so I will simplify this. In the next slide comes very simply. Phenomenal structure should not be conflated with qualitative structure. That means phenomenal consciousness should not be equated with qualia, despite sometimes interchangeable use of qualia and phenomenal properties in the literature. Phenomenal organization covers all various sorts of kinds of order and structure found within the domain of experience, that is within the domain of the world as it appears to us. There are obviously important links between phenomenal and the qualitative. Indeed, qualia might be best understood as properties of phenomenal or experienced objects, but there is in fact far more than the phenomenal than raw feels. Kant, Husserl, and generations of phenomenologists have shown the phenomenal structure of experience is richly intentional and involves not only sensory ideas and qualities but complex representations of time, space, cause, body, self, world, and the organized structure of lived reality in all its conceptual and non-conceptual forms. First time reading, very difficult to understand whatever is going on there. Simply, this is what qualia and this is what phenomenal consciousness is for us to digest. Qualia, the what of experience, what you are experiencing. If I ask you what you are experiencing, you experience sadness, you experience anger, you experience something good, some quality comes within you, okay. What it feels like to see the color red, to hear a symphony, to see a beautiful flower, something is feeling, you are feeling like something when you have these experiences. It determines the quality of the experience. You have a good experience or the bad experience. Phenomenal consciousness is the why of experience. Why you feel bad when you have that experience? Why you feel good when you have that experience? The why of the experience, why it feels the way it feels, indicates some processing of reality. Reality out there, processing, you are processing it, feeling gets generated. The why is there in the processing, right? Why it generates that feeling is in the processing. It is like a lens through which the reality is experienced. Reality, phenomenal consciousness is like the lens through which you absorb the reality within you. You have a feeling of feeling getting generated, the qualia coming out. Qualia is the output, the quality of the experience. Phenomenal consciousness is a process, the like a lens through which the reality is experienced. Okay. I was trying to get a picture, but I did not get a picture which does not have a license, but we all know this picture. We have all studied optics. So when you see an object through a convex lens and a concave lens, the object appears different. Same reality appears differently. So we have to understand it in this way, all of us having different lenses within us. That gives us a picture of the reality, different pictures of the reality, and that gives us some sort of a feeling about it. Okay. Feelings change over place and time. This is to note, feelings change over place and time. Today something happening to you, or let us say 10 years back something happened to you, you are really upset about it. Today something similar will happen to you, you will not be upset about it. You may even make a joke about it. Things change, okay, feelings change over time and place, even for the same person. For different person, obviously it will change. If I have 3 people and show them a certain movie, they will have different reactions about that movie, right? So Chambers proposed this called the hard problem of consciousness, which is the central thing that needs to be resolved in the science of consciousness. Wikipedia states in this way, and Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy states in this way, that in the philosophy of mind, the hard problem of consciousness is to explain why and how humans and other organisms have qualia. Why the qualia happens, how the qualia happens, why and how phenomenal consciousness, subjective experience happens. That is the hard problem of consciousness. Is a problem of explaining why any physical state is conscious, why it is conscious rather than non-conscious. It could have been non-conscious. It is a problem of explaining why there is something it is like for a subject in conscious experience, why conscious mental states light up and directly appear to the subject. Okay, why this experience is happening? The main question is that, why this experience is happening? Okay, that is the hard problem of consciousness. And the easy problem is to explain why and how physical systems give a human being the ability to discriminate, integrate information, perform certain behavioral actions such as watching, listening, speaking, etc. All these requires us to be conscious. But these are all functions of the conscious being. We have to discriminate between these two things. All this requires us to be conscious, but all these are functions of the conscious being, functions for which certain physical systems are used. So by noting the how these physical systems behave, how certain parts of brain become active while we are speaking, while we are moving the hand, we can have a correlation. That now if I give certain impulse to this part of the brain, maybe my arm will move. People have done these experiments. It happens like that. But that does not mean that it is the consciousness. It is a function of the conscious being. The conscious being is able to perform this function. Okay. But without consciousness, maybe also that function could be performed. If you subject the brain with that electrical impulse, hand will move. But there is no conscious effort in doing that. Okay. So these could be explained. These are easy problems of consciousness, are amenable to functional explanation. There is explanation that are mechanistic or behavioral, since each physical system can be explained purely by reference to the structure and dynamics of the physical system. This is easy in the, like, this is also difficult. People have to do a lot of experiment, lot of time and energy goes into discovering these things. But compared to that question, why this experience? Okay, this is easier to understand scientifically, that what changes in the physical system happens when that experience is obtained. Okay. Now we are trying, this is a landscape of consciousness. So many theories of consciousness are out there. The West has given so many different types of theories. Indian theory, sorry, this very much cracked up. So in the dualism and idealism, the top one is Indian, and in the dualism, 15th is the Indian, where the Samkhya is residing in that. Indian, it is written Indian, that means it is originated from India. Okay. And in idealism, the first one is Indian, which is Vedanta, originated from India. Then Buddhism, then other things are there. And most of the other things are all Western philosophers and scientists given their own theories. None of these converge with each other. This is the problem in the study of, in the field of consciousness. None of these are having any consensus with each other. Now, Robert Lawrence Kuhn has done a very big job in tabulating also all these different theories of consciousness. What we are trying to see, we are trying to tackle the problem of qualia and phenomenal consciousness through the Samkhya axioms. Okay. From these three axioms, this proposition we are giving, that Purusha observes Prakriti through embodiments made from Prakriti itself. This is not explicitly written in any of the Samkhya Karikas, but this is what we know, what we can realize ourselves, that if the Purusha is within us, there is this embodiment through which the Purusha observes the Prakriti which is outside this embodiment. So this is a proposition, and this is due to A2 and A3. We may have to do a bit of stretching, that Prakriti is subject to modifications, Purusha is not. So whatever is being observed, and Purusha is the observer of Prakriti, while Prakriti is for the observation of Purusha. So when Purusha is the observer, it is the observer, that means the Prakriti is now in its multifarious forms. So it have to observe Prakriti through the Prakriti only. It cannot be separate from the Prakriti and then observe Prakriti. When it observes Prakriti, Prakriti is now in its multifarious forms. So it has to observe Prakriti through the forms, through the multifarious forms of Prakriti only. And from our perspective, from any perspective of any organism, the organism knows that this is the boundary of the organism, this is the embodiment that the Purusha is having, and from this embodiment I am observing the rest of the Prakriti. This is also part of Prakriti, outside is also part of Prakriti. I am observing the outside Prakriti from this embodiment which is also Prakriti.
सर फिर आपका वो proposition का क्या होगा कि पुरुषा can observe पुरुषा?
It can.
लेकिन जब वहाँ पे प्रकृति ही नहीं होगी, like if he observes.
So when you so it is said in Yoga Sutra, that is the state of self-realization. So in the state of self-realization, the sense of Prakriti is not there with the Purusha. It happens in that way. Okay. Now we can discuss this later on. Okay. Now your natural question is, there still the Prakriti is there. When I am having self-realization, Prakriti, my body is still there.
If this is true, if this proposition is true,
Yes,
then
it will be there. It will be there. There is another way to explain that thing. Okay. So Purusha observes Prakriti through embodiments made from Prakriti itself, and that gives a corollary like this. So the observation of Purusha gets colored by the constituents or qualities of the embodiment, giving rise to what can be called the lens of consciousness. This is the corollary that we are proposing, that the observation of Purusha gets colored by the constituent qualities of the embodiment, giving rise to what can be called the lens of consciousness. Now this colored statement is there in Yoga Sutras. Lens of consciousness is a term that I am bringing up. Okay. This colored thing is there in Yoga Sutras. Yes, yes. And this is supposed to be, this is accepted for presentation. This is the, we have written an abstract paper actually, and it is accepted for presentation in the Science of Consciousness. Is one of the premier consciousness conferences in the world. In Barcelona it will happen in July. This is how we are trying to explain it. So we first establish the lens of consciousness by this axiom and proposition. Now what we say is that the awareness which is of Purusha through the lens of consciousness created from Prakriti is giving rise to qualia, which is the felt experience. The Purusha through the embodiment, because of the different colors, different lens of consciousness is there, different qualities of experience is generated. Because of the different lens of consciousness, different qualities of experience is generated. My experience and your experience is different. My experience today and 5 years down the line will be different for the similar sort of phenomenon, because the lens will change, because the embodiment will get modified over time. The embodiment is not just a physical embodiment. it is our mind, it is our emotions, it is how we see things, our models, our constructs of reality, everything, all keep on changing. Through this lens, we are experiencing the reality. Hence, the qualia is generated and getting different. Varies with embodiment. It is like this. So, one diagram I have given where you can see that at the center, the yellow light is the Purusha. At the very center, yellow light, here it is gone. So, is the Purusha. The colors are not very visible here. So, you can see the top of the mountains are different colors. So, actually the entire picture was having this pink hue, the second one. This was having the blue hue, that was having the yellow hue, and this is having the black and white hue. Here is a dove, by the way. Dove. It is I don't know why it is not coming. It is there here. The projection is not able to show the dove here. Here is a dove, a bird. Here is a whale. Here is a ladybug. Here is a human. So, what I am trying to infer is that the same Purusha is there. Same Purusha whose only quality or only trait or property is awareness. Same Purusha. With that awareness property, it is observing the entire reality through the lens of consciousness, the embodiment created from the Prakriti. Because the embodiment is different, the qualia that is getting generated is different. So, this is what is the proposition. And this lens of consciousness is the phenomenal consciousness. This is the process. What is the phenomenal consciousness? The why of experience. The lens is the why of experience. It is generated due to the proximity of Purusha and Prakriti. Only because Purusha is comes in proximity with Prakriti, Prakriti now manifests, and then comes the embodiment. Has both material and non-material support. Material is the Prakriti, non-material is the Purusha. It has both support. The lens is not formed unless both comes together in the sense of proximity. Is a property of the embodiment of the Purusha, hence it is material in character. It has both material and non-material support. It is created because of the proximity of material and non-material, but it is material. Okay, it is character is material. This is what we are saying. The consciousness here is material, and because it can be studied and observed, this lens can be studied and observed. The changes, your mind, your psychology, your feelings, etc., can be studied and observed. Your opinions, your constructs of reality, your model of reality can be studied and observed. Hence, it is material in nature. Whatever can be studied and observed is part of Prakriti. Now, this is very important to note here, that although we have this huge understanding that consciousness is non-material and non-physical, and also we approached, myself and Raghudev, we have this understanding of consciousness being non-material and non-physical, but then we realized that it is not consciousness but the Purusha which is non-physical. Purusha is non-physical, but the consciousness becomes physical. This is where we came in our research. In our research, we had to move from that stance of consciousness being non-physical, place the consciousness to be physical, to be material, but we moved the Purusha, which is the conscious principle, as the non-physical. Only that is the non-physical. Okay. In this way, we have done this research, and this research needs to be published with more arguments given in these propositions and corollaries that I have shown here. But what is the purpose of showing this here, discussing this in this forum? Some objectives I have already told in the very beginning. The next objective is that there are a lot of future works with this axiomatic framework, and if anyone is interested in to take part in this work, what are these works? Works are something like this. There may be some other work that may have come to your mind. These are the works that have come to my mind. We can propose all the Samkhya concepts which are there. Some of you have seen in the axiomatic framework. We can develop, since there is an axiomatic framework, there is a possibility of developing a mathematics from that axiomatic framework, showing most if not all theories of consciousness in the landscape that you have seen could be derived from Samkhya. Intuitively, I feel that this can be done. Some of the propositions of the theories I feel are some derivations of Samkhya. Taking a more general perspective on Samkhya principles means the principles are understood in some way at this moment, at present. They can be understood in a more general way. Like whenever we talk of Samkhya, people say that Purusha, do we refer to humans only? No. Every organism. Similarly, now if I say Ahankar, then you will say only organisms. I will say no. Beyond organisms also Ahankar can be there. Okay, so how it can be there? What is the logic behind it? So this could be explored. So there is possibility of taking the Samkhya principles to a more general perspective. So these things are things of research, things of idea generation, for which we want to have a discussion group where we can discuss about all these ideas. So if you are interested, you can quickly take a like with the QR code, you can join the group. So it will be flashed here for a few minutes while I take the question. So my presentation is over. So you can be part of this group. We will keep on having this sort of discussions, not in this sort of platform classroom, but we will meet together and discuss and then share our ideas, and maybe we can take forward some activities in research as well if you are interested. The research that I have done in this is done by UG students. Please keep in mind, UG students have helped me in this research. So there is quite a lot of possibilities. So they have read, they have understood. So everyone, all of us who are more matured can also have a flavor, also have an understanding of these ideas. So many questions were there in between, but if there is any final questions in the classroom that I can take, let me have those questions. And then we can, I think there is tea arranged in the outside. I don't know in which side, this side or that side. There also we can keep on discussing. Any questions? Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Exactly. Your understanding is perfectly correct. And when we are discussing science, there is a possibility of confusion if we use the same term. That's why we are not using consciousness anymore to call Purusha. We are only using the word Purusha. We have to define we have to define it in a certain way, and then from that definition we have to derive that consciousness is something different, and then Purusha is something different. Consciousness only. Now
That is kind of universal, or what you call
pure means untainted, without the colors.
which is not modified.
Hmm.
our term is what is
Modified.
because of the interaction with Prakriti.
Yes, because of the lens getting created, because of the colors.
Our
Yeah.
consciousness is
When the lens becomes clarified, when the colors are not there, then the consciousness is pure. And in that state is the state of self realization, where the Purusha can observe the Purusha only, as someone was talking about. Yes. Any other question? Yes.
Sir, what is the need of understanding consciousness? As such, what is the need of solving the hard problem? Like we can solve the easy problem and we can have a good life. Why we are trying to complex things?
It is the like quest of knowledge. Okay, quest of understanding things which are not yet understood. So this quest is inherent within us. This quest of knowledge is inherent.
Sir, actually, this is I think in response to what your question is, actually there is a Nobel Prize that gave behavioral economics के field में. There was a writer who wrote the book Thinking Fast and Slow. So he talks of two systems, system one and system two. System one is the more logical and rational system, and system two works on some heuristics. So it's not that logical. When it comes to any decision making, we involve both the systems. After reading that book, I realized that these are just imaginary characters, because if you do not understand, if you want to see how biases are made, you need to first assume that there is a system that does not involve any bias. That is system two that he calls of that system. Now, that way, like I think the fundamental premise of Sankhya and the brilliance lies in the fact that ऑब्जर्वर का पर्सपेक्टिव दिखा देने की वजह से हम लोग ऑब्जर्वेशन को ढंग से कर पाएंगे. So if we are involved in Prakriti and we do not have any conceptualization of Purush, then we cannot even explain Prakriti.
Yes, yes. So yeah, so that is one good answer. And if I have to again reframe the answer in a different way, so why we need to understand what is consciousness. The question would be rightly framed. What is the need to understand who I am? This is the need to understand what we are really. And when we get that understanding, get that knowledge, get that self knowledge, we will be able to appreciate our existence in this reality in a very different way, and our interaction with the reality will also become very different, and it would be a very different sort of a life for myself, as well as the life that I may be able to create for others. Okay, so you being an engineer may be able to design systems with a different perspective altogether. Okay, something like that can happen.
Sir, also like aren't we trying to explain something which is subjective in nature? Because as you are saying, it depends on the lens that we are having. Subjective kind of attribute is there with the consciousness. I mean, while we are trying to develop a model which is sort of objective in nature, so how fruitful that approach would be? Like, what is that subjectivity that we are putting in the framing of this model? Are we introducing any kind of that subjectivity at the model level itself, so that we can later on be able to explain the subjective experiences using that model?
We are explaining the subjective experience as to why the subjective experience is, not really digging down that what exactly is the subjective experience. So we know that there is a qualia, but what is your qualia, I will never be able to explain. Maybe even you will not be able to explain unless you do a lot of introspection. But there is a qualia which we all acknowledge. So the qualia now becomes objective in that sense, although what exactly constitutes the qualia is very subjective. But being able to also define that there is something called qualia and there is something called phenomenal consciousness, there is a difference between these. These are objectivities which we bring into a so-called subjective field of study. Okay. So I hope that I was able to answer most of your questions. Other questions, if there, we will take outside. So, is there the tea is arranged? This side or that side? This side the tea is arranged. So let us all move, and I will be joining shortly after taking this off. Thank you.